Hi, Ken. Well, this is super fun. I have your 7A28 here. And just for fun and for posterity, I want to just read what you, sort of excerpts of what you told me about this watch. You bought this watch brand new in 1987. You were a clearance diver for the Canadian Navy. So you did underwater work and also dive training and stuff like that. Your teams were issued Tudor submariners, but they were notoriously unreliable because they were serviced on base. And so, despite the fact that Tudor Submariner being a huge collectible and everybody wants them and paying tons of money, you guys actually didn't like them very much because they didn't run very well, probably because they weren't serviced and they had to undergo serious stuff. This was your dive watch then, as a result, for for your dive training and all the other stuff that you did. And that you loaned this watch one day to another person, and that person inadvertently put the watch down on the side of the ship, and then they realized that they had in fact lost it, that it had gone into the water, and that was very sad. And then fast forward a year, you're training another class in the same area, and one of your students comes up with this watch. And you go over and you say, "Hey, you found my watch. That's great." And the guy's like, "Come on, it's not your watch." And he said, "Sure it is. It has my name engraved on the back." And there it is. So this watch spent a full year under the ocean. And when you got it back, it was still running. You can see the surface hazing and corrosion on this. That should clean up when we put it through the ultrasonic to clean the case out. Biggest thing I see obviously is the serious pitting on the insert. You know, if it were me, I would just clean it. I would leave the insert. What a story. There are aftermarket inserts that I can put in. They're pretty okay. They're pretty decent. They look okay. And if you want to do that, we can certainly talk about that. I'd leave it. I mean, that's a crazy story, and you can point right here and say, "Look what happened." Now, I have already pulled the case back off because I was very curious to see. So you got the watch back. The watch was still running, and I'm assuming then that the watch ran down, and that this is the original battery. But look at the movement. And I have the case back seal. It's here, and the case back seal is still pliant, amazingly, and I can tell it's still greased. We had a little bit of moisture that got in, but just for fun, I just want to see what happens if we put a new battery into the watch. I just want to see if it'll go. Hang on. Having technical difficulties. Okay. I haven't seen it yet. Let's see. Okay, I put in a battery. Isn't Seiko amazing? Isn't Seiko amazing? This thing spent a year underwater. It's never been serviced. The battery died in the 90s, and here it is. Okay, first click. Let's see if we can get any of the registers to move. Well, they're all seized up pretty well. Of course, it could be that the buttons themselves are seized up and they're simply not dropping far enough to make contact. I will test that. No fluttering. But we'll have to see. But we can see that at least part of the circuit is alive. And based on the way that the movement looks, I would be surprised if we see super major damage. What we could also find is that the click levers for these tend to, unfortunately they're not stainless, and they tend to corrode. And when they do, then all of a sudden you don't get a connection through here. But I will take it apart and I will test it. And I will see what we get. But clearly, there's some life there yet. Okay, that's it. I'll be very curious to see. Well, let me check one more thing. Let's check one more thing. I just want to manually look at these things. Hang on just one second. Yeah, I can see a little corrosion on those levers. Not a ton, but I can see some. They're definitely, okay, there's definitely some corrosion. Not a lot. Some on those levers. So we're going to have to see what we find. But there's nothing wrong with this watch that I can't put right. So I pulled the battery back out, and we'll see what we can get. But I'm sure it'll come back to life. Okay, thank you, Ken.